Flamengo are definitely a very decent team when it comes to their jungle, and their bot lane in particular, I feel like, are incredibly prolific in their successes. And I think that coming out of this empowered mid lane, Renska have an opportunity to maybe find an avenue to maybe take some advantages, maybe have a chance at winning this game, but it is going to be very, very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Anga, look, you're going against one of the best mid laners of all time in Brazilian Tuts, and you're playing with kind of nothing to lose here, right? No one is expecting you to win this game. No one's expecting you to win this lane. But to your point, as the bans roll through here, nothing too crazy. The Gnar ban, I am maybe a little bit surprised taking that away from Parang. Parang can play pretty much anything, and he's been fantastic, all split, obviously. But to your point, Rudude, the strength of Flamengo have been Ranger and Redbird. And again, that is not even to take away from Tuts and Parang, because they are, everyone on Flamengo is top 3 bare minimum in their respective roles.
Oh, for sure. And I think that going in, like, that's what we're going to have to see Renska focus on the draft, right? You've highlighted these 2 key players for Flamenco, and you can see that sort of highlighted here. Leona, Pantheon, and then the Gnar, as we've alluded to, taken away from Parang. He had a really decent Gnar game that springs up to mind, and definitely I can see why we've got that worthwhile ban going on. But with obviously all of these bans coming through, they've tried to target those 2 highlight players. And I'm really interested to see if we do see a sort of Mundo meta start evolving now after that previous game that we've just seen, that seemingly counter pick or pre-pick into the Udyr, just matching him in terms of power farming and then essentially doing what Udyr does, but a little bit better in those tanking stats. But we are going to see the Aphelios and the Udyr picked up here, so not going to be opting into that Dr. Mundo matchup into the Graves this time around. Makes a lot of sense, obviously. Early game, the Dr. Mundo does have some fairly decent dueling power, but the Graves definitely a lot more adept at trying to cut through those tanks than necessarily the Udyr would be.
Yeah, he's sneaky, kind of that bursty that bursty potential. But Zagragas has hovered here. Wouldn't be surprised to see that. Okay, and up onto Kiari. The Anivia hover, again, not troll at all. She's getting nerfed in the next patch a little bit, I believe, in 11.3, but we are still at 11.2. Anivia is really strong. I would be surprised but not shocked. But going back to the Udyr pick, that he does have that sneaky tankiness in the mid game, but like you said, those first couple dragons, and heralds to be secured, that really is where Froststrike can shine on this Graves, as the Rel locked in for Renska. So we'll see what how the bottom lanes shake out here, and what to kind of what we were discussing earlier, what Redbird gets put on here, because the meta really does reward, and I think this is part of the reason that Flamengo have really hit their stride here. The meta really does reward junglers and supports making plays all over the map as a 2-man squad.
And this draft so far from Renska, honestly, pretty clean, I have to say. Like, just at least in terms of what they've drafted and where they've banned out in particular. So they take Leona off the board, they pick the Rel as well. So taking those 2 highly priced picks at the minute in CBLOL, banning one of them, picking the other. Yes, Flamenco have got themselves Alistar, and you've highlighted the strengths of jungle support synergy, and Alistar just goes to aid that so effortlessly, really, in their duo. But I really like the fact that also with this Gragas pickup, we see it going to the top lane. Camille, not likely to be picked up in this second round of picks for Flamenco, just because Gragas has such a good lane against it, and we've seen Camille's take over in CBLOL. Like, I think that's probably one of the best champions that I've seen perform whilst I've been watching and showing off these games. That Camille being sort of preemptively not banned, but saying, hey, you want to pick the Camille, you're going to have a horrid laning phase. And you can see that Renska, with these mismatched picks in the first phase, are focusing even more top lane areas just to put Parang on something that's even less comfortable for him.
Yeah, that Jace is is a pick that he loves, so he's not going to be on that. And now they're just focusing hard on Trigo, taking away the Samira, which has not seen a ton of success, kind of the opposite of of Camille in CBLOL, and taking away Misfortune as well, and taking the Renekton out of the hands of Parang. Yeah, both of these teams, like you said, just a very clear draft strategy here in these last 2.
And expect with this R4 pick here and a lot of top lane bans going out, that we're going to see a top laner for Parang come through. Obviously, they're going to want to save counter pick for that mid lane role. And it is going to be here the Aatrox coming on through. So throwing it back a little bit here, and we're still pre-Gore Drink and Nerf, I believe. So we're going to have a lot of healing coming out of this out of this top lane and out of the team in general, right? Just looking across, we're expecting the Alistar's healing to come on through from his passive, the Helios, likely to have Lifeline in his rune set, so that passive healing from the rune's definitely going to help out as well. So early game, these healing reduction items going to need to come on through and prevent Aatrox from taking over in that healing department. But you can see here with Renska taking themselves the Xayah here, recognizing the pretty heavy dive that Flamenco have already got, and with those targeted ADC bans, we're definitely going to be we're defaulting back to things that are a little bit lower in priority, but also Xayah does exceedingly well into these hard dive champions, things like Aatrox, like Alistair. You can easily immune that knock up and immune that engage just by using the Feather Storm, and if you put Alistair's cooldowns and make them useless, it's an incredibly strong tool to be using.
I was going to say that this feels like the perfect pick, especially, Xayah really doesn't hit her stride until late. She can take over games, but the laning phase can be really tough for her. Rel is a fine partner, I suppose, as Enga going to be put on Orianna duty, and we're going to get, looks like, an Orianna Syndra matchup. Yay! But to your point, the counter dive, it is really good there on Renska, because that feels like, okay, if it was anyone but Xayah, maybe that's where you try to punish. Especially with, the Rel ultimate, it doesn't interrupt things, it just kind of moves people around. Yeah. So that feels like it'd be something that could be punished a lot easier had it not been a pick like the Xayah. But I suppose we maybe could see some fireworks in the bot lane. But again, the more, Orianna Syndra is a very, one of the more handshaky mid lanes. So as far as playing through Enga, it does become a little bit trickier.
It really does, and we'd highlighted these solo lanes as potential areas for success. It's Flamenco playing to their strengths here. They're going to have Redbert on an Alistair who's going to be able to roam around, help out Ranger in that jungle, and really look to start succeeding and putting the rest of the team ahead, moving them across the map and finding advantages in places that Renska, rather, aren't going to be in the position to respond with. And I think that having this Aatrox in the top lane, we're going to maybe see Parang go a little bit huge in the early game. I don't want to cast too many dispersions early on, but I do think that this top side of the map, at least for Flamenco, could look fairly strong. And pretty much across the board, they've got themselves decent lanes. Syndra has a slight edge over Orianna in the early game, just because you've got that stun coming on through in your kit pre-level 6. And down on the bot side, Rel versus Alistair, you can make arguments, but Alistair typically favoured into Rel, and that's more just to limit her engages and limit the utility that Clion will have. But either way, we'll definitely have to wait and see where these early game ends up going, because we've got to remember, Flamenco are outright favourites coming into this game.
Well, I think it'd have to be, you are right about that. Yeah, no, I think it's with these kind of dive options. I mean, Redbird does, with these dive comps, Alistar is a divey champion, but holy moly, yeah, I mean, as the Twitter poll comes in here, it is all Flamengo all the way. And I mean, these could be just straight up odds or just straight up fan voting. We wouldn't know the difference, because this really does feel like, again, it's going to be one of the more lopsided matches. But I like having an Alistar in a dive comp, because it does offer you a little bit more defense, right, as opposed to just pure offense, go, go, go. If someone were to get onto the backline, again, not that they have a lot of backline access for Renska, so it's not like you need someone to peel for Absolute. Now, if there was a little more dive on that side, then I think you maybe would have seen Redbird go with a Thresh or something like that. Thresh FLA is very, very common for that reason, just to keep him safe, to protect the president, right?
Yeah.
But no, I think that's about what you would expect. Nothing crazy here from runes either, really. This is a pretty standard stuff here.
Yeah, an early game at least. Froststrike trying to make his mark in the jungle matchup here, recognizing that Udi is just going to grab his blue, hit a full clear, and managing to maybe take away this red buff. We'll see how greedy he gets here, because there's a ward nearby the Raptor camp, and if he does it well enough, then Flamenco won't see him take these away. And it looks like he's well aware of where this ward is, but if he steps just a second too far over, that is going to be the vision given over, and now the information given to Ranger and to Flamenco. If they want to maybe do some split vertical jungling, they have that opportunity. But equally, if Flamenco have got themselves that mid lane priority, Froststrike could be in a little bit of danger. It looks as though we are just going to see a couple of camps cleared away, taken away by Froststrike, and that power of Udia's early game farming really going to be limited, just because there's no camps for him to be farming.
Yeah, it sounds very simple, but these kinds of things do add
Yeah,
up in the early game, especially when with these with Udyr, that is something that it's clear speed and skirmishing and CC ability, right? And that's what guys like Olaf and Volibear provide, and that is why they're so prevalent in the meta, and that's why either in I don't know if it's in 11.3 or 11.4 the patch notes, but the
don't die here, Chiari.
yeah, I think he might be in a little bit of trouble here. Ranger, I think maybe just out of vision. Chiari doesn't have a ton of mana. He does have his flash, trying to extend this fight just a little bit, but Ranger with some good CC there, just Phoenix dancing him up. And finally, the flash, the follow-up there, the tower shot, will it be enough? First blood over to Chiari. How about it?
Well, I said don't die. I definitely wasn't expecting him to pick up the kill as well there. Beautiful stuff. And now we might not be quite over just yet. We've got bot lane looking for an engage here. Just a quick 2v2 scuffle.
That Trigo is taken low. The ignite burned there by Redbird. Maybe would have had the all in there. Yeah, I mean maybe with the graviton or something like that if that was up, could have been something to capitalize on. Now Parang TP-less, but did opt for a defensive start here. And Chiari, yeah, with a little bit more kill threat. I imagine he'll go a little bit tankier build, but we'll see this replay again.
Yeah, so the initial fact that Chiari is in this state is pretty bad in its own right, but the way that he manages to turn it around just shows how nicely he's able to play out this Gragas. And using the flash here, saving his body slam is the important factor. Recognizing that he can't body slam past the Udyr, saves it, uses his flash, and then when the Udyr flash to follows, just a quick stunt under the turret. And it is trivial for Chiari to pick up that kill. And a little bit of a misplay here from Ranger, a little bit rare to see that and rare to see it come on through. But the fact that Froststrike has been stealing away his camps, now has got a kill lead as well, or rather, not a death on himself. Definitely going to be helping out the Graves in this instance. You can see that he's taken a bit of a wayward path in the early game, given that he started off on the enemy red buff and hasn't managed to find a full clear through his own jungle yet. So at the minute, the camps look the same, but we have to remember his Graves has still got his entire bot side to clear, whilst Udyr taking off those top two camps on his side is going to put him just a little bit behind in terms of those CS numbers, and especially losing your life early on, definitely never where you want to be. And with that, this is once again these areas that we've been talking about for Renska, these solo laners potentially being able to find an avenue to carry. And up on this top side here, Chiari has himself the potential for a freeze. Obviously, Parang on this Aatrox, fairly adept at trying to stop that and prevent that from coming on through. But with this Hextech Alternator already, Gragas can definitely throw out some trades and definitely try and punish this Aatrox, who's not really got any combat stats to talk of, just a little bit of HP, that Doran shield as well, providing a bit of lane sustain. But other than that, not too much at all.
Yeah, we'll see if Chiari can keep that pressure onto Parang. I mean, because Parang on this Aatrox, he's going to have to get going here. Now, the Gore Drinker does mitigate a lot of the scaling problems that champions like Aatrox would run into, but until that's online, and even when that does get online, you still need a little bit of a base to stand on, especially if you're opting a little more defensively early on. So I think for Chiari, it's just about intelligently keeping your foot on the gas.
He needs to be careful, of course. Aatrox can definitely go toe-to-toe with laners in the early game, but we're expecting it to be fairly easy for Gragas with the level lead or with the item lead that he's got. But you can see those top lane trades. We are seeing Parang definitely show his caliber and his class on this top side, going even in farm, going even in trading as well. Definitely looking fairly decent on the Aatrox. Of course, didn't die himself on that top play, but definitely was hurt by the first blood going over to his lane opponent. Now we've reached about 6.5 minutes. We've already lost the first dragon, and you can see Renska very early on looking to try and start setting up vision inside the top side of Flamenco's jungle. We know that Rift Herald is going to be the next objective for these teams to be taking, and Renska, with this dragon already down and with this seemingly advantage that they've got on the top side, they are going to be looking to try and force out some fights and force in some plays on the top lane. And you can see that both Redbird and Clion have recognized the top side priority. Both of our supports are at least on this side of the map. But for the time being, nothing really going to come through from it. Redbird did get spotted out and was pinged out, spotted, and now these bot laners just going to continue farming on their own of their own free will. But something that we should keep track of here quickly is we have got a slight gold lead for Flamenco, and it's exclusively from this mid lane. The CS lead that is coming out from the Syndra into Orianna matchup is definitely telling. But Chiari going in for a fight on the top side.
looks like he's got kind of the all-in here, but Parang able to get away, has to burn the Flash and the World Ender. So that is going to be nice, and see what they can do with this priority here. Rift Herald is not up. Is it up yet?
15 seconds.
Yep, there we go. So in 15 seconds, but will that be enough? And I mean, even with, you talk about the defensive stats, how they are cheaper. With the Doran Shield, you get a little more lane sustain. Now Parang has the wave in, who I think it did crash there, but he had it in an okay spot. He doesn't have TP, so he's got to be smart about his back timings and to facilitate the pressure that his team could counteract here around this Herald, because that's where Frost Strike is looking.
It's where both junglers should be looking, and you can see the support's already on their way as well. And important little side note, I suppose, about the side lanes, the way this is going, is that Xayah's going to have first push, because Absolute on this Aphelios pushed and moved his way up to that mid lane about 30 seconds too early. The Rift Herald not quite spawned. The Aphelios decided that he was going to go for a push and roam on that wave instead of this one, where nothing really was going on around the Herald. Then Xayah gets the push in the wave because there's no Aphelios to contest it. And recognizing that, I believe, we are going to see Flamenco giving up, conceding, but instead trying to steal away camps on the other side of the map. So making the most of the bad situation here, if they're able to pick up a load of gold in the enemy's jungle, is going to not only set Graves back, but also give Anudia a little bit more of that gold that he was looking for. Oh, really nice from Clion.
Able to pop the Ferromancy and get himself out of trouble. Now joining Trigo in the bot lane, linking up with him literally. And not another dragon for another minute and change. So, and with this, with the ultimate of, or is Cleon still level 5? I believe he is. So no ultimate available just yet, but not going to try the dive there. No need. This game's still very much even. Renska, obviously, with a slight kill advantage, but ahead in dragons and a Rift Herald, which should be able to push them back even, or maybe even over the top. I think that's going to be pretty critical in what's been a pretty slow game here, unexpectedly so, between two teams on the opposite sides of the table.
Yeah, Flamenco here sort of stagnating their way through this game, and with a champion like Aatrox, that's not typically the route that we see, though. You've already highlighted the power of that Gore Drinker and helping him be that front line that Aphelios is almost definitely going to need. But the later this game goes, it will just come down to execution and come down to team fights here. Both of the squads have got a very nice team fight situation and have got themselves a lot of DPS in the backline, a nice stable front line to fight with. And coming down to execution, that's not really what Renska are going to be wanting, right? If you're looking at the stats, you're looking at the scorelines, you're looking at everything coming into this game. Flamenco out and out, outpace, outmatch, and are better than the Renska players. So Flamenco at this point, probably quite happy to just sit back, get their farm, rely on Absolute, rely on Tuts, and rely on Parang on the top side to just beat those better carries when we reach the late game team fights. The ones that really matter, the times that matter the most, and when the pressure is on, these guys definitely perform. So if nothing's going on, you have to favor Flamenco.
Because like you said, on any team fight, any whatever, on even footing, right? Everything else being equal, you would favor Flamenco just because they are just no way to really artfully put it. Well, there's a way to artfully put it. I just can't think of it. Is they are just better. Scatter the Weak, not going to land. Shockwave not used defensively because it didn't have to be. Anga still has Flash, but maybe overstayed his welcome a little bit. Flashed in, but here comes Parang on the other side of the pincer, and Tuts picks up his first kill of the game.
It's so good from Redbird to hold his Pulverize right there. Uses the headbutt knowing the Orianna has to flash it for fear of the Pulverize coming through, and then waiting to see where the Orianna flashes to. Follows up with his own Q flash. It's just undodgeable with the flanking from the top side as well. Parang comes down, and now Flamenco are able to pick themselves up maybe a dragon here.
Redbird, nice play. Keeper. Ooh, stolen. He was playing Keeper, but on the wrong side. Trigo able to swipe the... Actually, no, yeah, that was Trigo there on that side. I don't know how he was able to get the steal off, but now they've got the chase onto Chiari, so they lose a dragon, but are able to get a kill. Not the worst thing in the world, but man, I want to see a replay of that.
Yeah, I think it was the feathers coming back, like he just threw out the Q and then Blade Call of them all, and just two feathers able to secure the Drake is definitely admirable here from Trigo, showing up when his team needed him. And that could definitely be something to keep our eyes on, though. In the mid lane, we do see a trade here. Shockwave going on down, Tut's not quite ready, but Gravitum is here on Absolute, and they could look for a fight.
Yeah, they got the lockdown onto Cleon, gets the heal off, and the Moonlight Vigil there with the Flame, the Infernum passive is able to spray some damage, but Cleon with the heal from Trigo able to help survive that, and really not going for the all in there. Redbird didn't have Ignite, etc. But that is they burn a couple summoners there, so they'll take those.
And now we do see this TP into the mid lane, and no ward here. Enga is just going to fall once again, surely.
Yep. Yep, no flash and many problems actually. Yeah, Toots, he just very well done. I'm not sure if that green ward there for Renska was there beforehand, but just a good TP onto that ward. He says, "No, I can kill him, and I've got help from Redbird as well." Again, he's just all over the map, enabling his laners, kind of that secondary jungler. The meta really favors that right now in Flamengo, despite a bit of a not even a rocky start, just a rocky by their standards, just because they aren't just pulverizing kids, but they're taking care of their fundamentals. And like you said, you would favor them in everything else being equal situation because of their mechanics as individuals, but also they play like a unit. They're so experienced. There's a reason they're undefeated.
And they're probably going to look to stay here undefeated because it's honestly exactly how Flamengo would have not necessarily wanted it, but now that they're in this position, they're going to be more than happy with the state of the game. They're up 2,000 gold. They're not necessarily up on the kit on the objectives, mind you, but you can see that with that 2,000 gold lead, at some point the objectives will just come naturally to them with this gold lead. And unless they secure a load more steals, if Trigo and Froststrike are able to continue doing the dirty work, I imagine the Dragons will come on through and the Barons soon enough will go in Flamenco's favour. And at some point, it becomes a point where Flamenco will just say, well, if we kill them, they can't steal the objectives. And I imagine that with all the engage that they have here, being Redbird on this Alistair and the potential just flash bear slap, you can never underestimate the engage level of an Udyr with the flash available and the turbo chem tank as well now online. At a certain stage, Flamenco will just start to run into Renska, and it's at that point when you start to look at the composition of Renska and see, well, how well do they deal with disengage? And honestly, the tools that they've got are fairly decent. They've drafted Desire to limit that exact engage. They've also got Gragas with that cask is a beautiful disengage tool just to disrupt a team fight, spread out the teammate or the enemies and maybe isolate somebody. So it is going to be pretty difficult for Flamenco to try and find these nice engages unless they are crystal clear, unless they are perfect. Renska have a lot of tools to be able to diminish this engage value and really make something of this game. So don't count your chickens just yet. Flamenco, whilst they are ahead here, still have to execute on these team fights, which we haven't seen from either side. The team fights at the minute just seemingly not there. It's really just been Redbird roaming around the map, playing to Tuts, who is 2-0-1, 100% kill participation so far. The only member on his team with that, as we do see a little bit of a scuffle down on the bot side, but Parang more than tanky enough to get himself away, might even try to turn it.
Yeah, he could 2v1. He is level 11, has that rank 2 World Ender. He's going to pop it. Flashing into CC. It is enough. Frost Strike. How about a collateral damage right to the beak? Aatrox goes down and a big second kill picked up there. And you want it in the hands of Frost Strike as a secondary kind of carry option here, especially in this early game before Trigo gets going.
Oh, for sure here. The Graves with Gale Force as well. So Mythic completed. Definitely looking strong right there and able to more than handily take down Parang. You could see the power of the Rel right there. Just all of the CC that she was providing really helped out in that instance. So more than happy to pick up that quick kill. Definitely going to be aiding the Graves. And whilst the turret did go down on the top side for Renska, they're able to trade it back for a bot side turret of their own. So overall, a net positive trade. That gold lead slightly closing up just a little bit here. It's not much at all, but it's definitely advantage Renska right there. So nice to see them making proactive plays. And at exactly the right time, we have Ocean Dragon spawning in 18 seconds. And you can see that with that kill, they're able to establish vision in the bot side jungle. They now have control over it for the time being, whilst Flamenco are making their plays on the top side. They're going to have to re-establish control in the river and re-establish control over mid lane.
This third Drake coming up here. 3-0 feels a lot worse than 2-1. Stun does land there with the Scatter the Weak. Toots. Unleash Power still holding on to it. No reason to pop that just yet. You talked about how eventually the damage will just be too much as Herald's going to be popped here. So we see this a lot, right? It's maybe wasn't ideal, but pre-Dragon, this is something that a lot of teams will do if they can't exert enough pressure, can't clear out vision. They say, okay, well, we're going to give you another problem to think about. We're going to make you make a decision here, or at least put a little bit more of the decision-making or the reactivity anyway on the side of Renska. And now in they go. Rel Ultimate popped as well. Parang into the back line, trying to take Frost Strike out of this fight. And indeed he does. And who else but Toots able to pick up yet another kill. That mythic item so strong here. And his compatriot in Enga, not on that mythic item yet, but still able to take Redbird down pretty low here. Actually lower than I thought. Frost Strike are able to burn his
Oof.
Redbird Splash, excuse me. There's the explosive cast. It's decent damage, but the follow-up and the coordination isn't quite there. See if they can pull off a miracle steal here. They will not. Able to absolutely shred through this Drake just in time, and they get a very valuable one back.
And the kill on top of that is going to really put Flamenco in the driver's seat right here, picking themselves up that quick kill only onto the support, but that's all they needed to establish control, establish priority, and pick themselves up that Ocean Dragon, so valuable, so needed here for Flamenco. Not only does it give them a first dragon, it denies Soul Point from Renska, and denying that doesn't put you on as much of a clock, right? They're now in an opportunity, in a position to trade a dragon for a Baron, right? We're going to get to that 23-minute mark when the next Baron is spawning, and that is about the time when Aphelios with this Kraken Slayer, when Aatrox are going to be able to start dishing out very meaningful damage to the big purple worm, to that neutral objective. And if Renska are going to be like, well, we'll take one Ocean Dragon, Flamenco can say, you know what, you can have this one. It's not your soul. We don't care. If we get the Baron, we can end the game, and they might look to try and take that trade. So picking that objective up now is going to reward them in the later stages of the game as well. Flamenco, they might even try and look for a play right here on this top side, because as you mentioned, Tuts is just so strong.
My goodness. Yeah, and didn't even need to use his ultimate there, but maybe could have ended Anga, but Anga with the phase rush maybe could have gotten away. I think that kind of 1/3 threshold might have been just enough to keep him alive, or maybe if he gets a shield on himself just in time. And speaking of counter dive as well, Frost Strike also with the smoke screen, really, really potent. With champs that just need to be up in everybody's business, like Parang, like Ranger, right? That smoke screen can be really, really helpful. And these champs, right? They have to run at you, right? Like you said, the most kind of threatening or surprising form of engage is the Flash Bear Slap from Ranger. But aside from that, a smoke screen can make life unnecessarily difficult as well for Flamengo. But they are starting to pull away here.
Especially with, like, I just want to keep touching on this strong Syndra, this mid lane matchup that Tuts has really just put in on his own, right? Yes, he's 3-0-1, and yes, he's had support from Redbird, but just in the laning phase, out CSing Enga in the mid lane, and now with these items that he's picked up, that Luden's going to be giving him a little bit of extra magic pen as well when he picks up this Archangels, and with the Sorcerer's Shoes on top of that, people with no MR are going to melt. Champions like Xayah, Ori as well, Graves, nobody has picked up the magic resist yet. Even Chiari, you saw the Unleashed Power rip through his HP, and he's supposed to be the front line here for Renska. Everybody is going to crush under the might of this Syndra, and when we get to another team fight phase, if we do see that mythic picked, or that second legendary item rather, picked up here for the Syndra, fear for everybody that doesn't kill her.
Yeah, I think the only magic resist literally I think that we're seeing is Mercury Treads on Cleo.
Yeah.
And that's not going to do it, Chief. That is not going to be enough. Okay, no magic mantle, but still, your point very much stands. Chiari does need to be that secondary frontliner, and to be a disruptor, he's got to stay alive long enough with all the CC and disruption that he can provide. It's not going to be enough to just throw one cast body slam. Tuts can get out of that. He's still got flash. He's probably going to pick up a stopwatch at some point as well. The defensives will keep piling up, and if he can keep himself safe, which I think you can, right? With one good scat of the week, with the composition he has around him, Redbird playing bodyguard, Absolute just being another, kind of gravitational pull. He's going to attract his own amount of attention, despite being 0-0-0 right now. A little scuffle over the Scuttle Crab, and it is, in fact, Flamengo that pick it up. But you're absolutely right, to wrap up my ramblings here, to put the attention on Tuts. Because, and again, I don't know how they're going to get back to him. I don't know how they get him in a straight-up 5v5.
It's going to have to be through some eccentric angles, some different angles of approach, a new engage style from Renska, because at the minute, Flamenco are more than happy just playing this front-to-back style. And if by some miracle they are able to pick up Tuts, who has flash, has scatter, has all of this peel from the Alistair as well, they're going to have to kill Absolute, who has meanwhile just quietly been farming up, picking up his items, is soon going to have this Runaan's Hurricane, is going to be that 2-item Aphelios with the Kraken Slayer that is incredibly dangerous. Parang as well, almost working toward that Sterex Gauge, going to be a nuisance, a nightmare to try and take out in the team fight. It's not necessarily because he's strong, but speaking of finding Tuts, this could be their fight.
Yep, this is how they got to do it. Oh, the nice flash over, but the collateral damage picked him up right where he left off, and they get a tower out of it as well. That is a big pick. This game is closer than maybe even I was painting it out to be, and I apologize, but I feel like Flamengo, they just seem very, very Thanos-esque in that they're inevitable. So we're just kind of waiting for like, okay, where's it going to blow open? But credit to Renska. Look, like you said, it's creative angles in a 5v5 or just 3v1, right? And they got a tower out of that as well. So Parang trading the tower back doesn't hurt quite as bad.
And they're
And
going
now
to
they're
get
going
the
to start this
dragon out
dragon.
of this. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, right? Tuts has TP, but he's just not alive in time for it here. The perfect timing on the pick comes on through, and they are going to be able to pick that one up. Flamenco, though, not resting on their laurels, are going to try and start up this Baron, and now it becomes a question of, do Renska know? The answer, almost certainly yes. TP in from Tuts, he could try and find an angle, and immediately Flamenco peel off. Quite wisely, but look at Redbird, look at Ranger, they're going for the engage.
There goes Redbird, gets the headbutt in there, the Pulverize as well, Moonlight Vigil, and the Scatter of the Week doing so much work. That is the straight up 5v5 that they wanted. They've got good go buttons, they've got good damage, and that is just the tip of the iceberg. Chiari trying to do some work on that mid-tier 1. Oh, it's just so close, but Flamengo are running it straight down mid.
And they have no reason not to right here. Establish mid lane priority with your numbers advantage. Transition that one into the Baron. Pretty menial work right here for Flamenco. And yes, Renska found a nice pick on the top side and they transitioned that into a dragon. But with that, they lost all their vision around the Baron. And Redbird, look at him. He's still in this brush and they're still going to walk into it. Trigo has Featherstorm, so might be able to find a disengage. But Froststrike looking for a steal as well.
Oh, there's the Scout of the Week. Oh, he canceled the Hex Flash. TP coming in as well. Trigo already burned the Feather Storm. And now the Shockwave going to buy his team a little bit more time. But Parang is in the back line, but he's got no backup. And here comes the squad here. Redbird able to get the knockup in. Absolute and Toots staying alive. Ranger still on the Baron. And now Cleon may be looking to punish him. Ranger didn't abandon the Baron just yet. Collateral damage. It's not enough. The Ignite's going to tick down as well, but that won't be enough. Ranger will somehow survive, and so will the big purple worm.
2 for 2. So Flamenco not coming out ahead right there. They do get, obviously, the initial fight, but a really good response here from Renska, keeping themselves in this game. The Baron hasn't gone down. They've picked up a couple of kills, and importantly, they still have a chance in this one. They can definitely look to stop more Barons. They've got themselves really nice setup to do such a thing. Chiari, with those barrels being that front line, can definitely just pump out little bits of poke, little bits of chip here damage. We've got, obviously, the Void Staff and Night Harvester coming on through, so he's dealing fairly meaningful damage in these little Q harasses that he's doing. And in a tight corridor such as the Baron Pit, you can definitely find that onto 1 to 2 members. And talking of, not having penetration, not having resistances, if you get one of those Qs onto the Aphelios, he's got no magic resist himself. Syndra in the exact same boat. They're going to be starting to get chunked out a little bit as well. Renska by no means flopping in this game, and Flamenco are definitely being given much more of a challenge than I think they'd have been given credit for.
I would have to agree with you there. Yeah, I don't think they came. I mean, none of us came into this game thinking that this was going to be as close as it was. That Flamengo weren't going to be anything but just rolling over Renska right now. But give credit where credit is due, and it hasn't even been through Enga necessarily. He's gotten targeted. He's not having a good time right now. But his shockwaves have still been good. They've been disruptive, which at the bare minimum, if you're playing from behind as Orianna, that is all you can ask for. You are utilitarian, right? You are a control mage. You are there for the rest of your team. Or you can pump out a lot of damage, obviously. But I like that Enga has kind of recognized, okay, look, this isn't my game. It's up to really just, Froststrike and eventually maybe Trigo, right? But just playing to the win condition that has emerged for Renska.
And that was what you highlighted, right? Giving kills over to the Graves to give him that secondary carry source. And at this point, fighting for the top spot here, it's him and Chiari that are pumping out the damage, that have got those good numbers. They're really making things happen here. And it's going to be interesting to see whether or not Renska can continue to make this game quite as close as it has been. We've got 1 minute on the Ocean Dragon spawning. It's going to be pivotal that Renska try and fight for this one, because if they don't, that could just lead into a continual snowball of objectives. And if they're able to pick up this Ocean Soul right now, that gives them team fights throughout the rest of the game here. It gives them the ability to take team fights around the Baron, around the next Elder, which could well spawn. What they need to do is try and establish some control, because you can see Tuts here in a great spot to find a flank. Ranger as well. They're just going to charge at them with no vision in the river. It's really difficult for Renska to find any sort of priority around that bot side.
That counter engage looking good. Redbird taking so much damage. He gets locked up, and the collateral damage will hit him in the behind, but he's able to pop his ultimate and stay alive. Tuts almost lands a Scat of the Week there, but Flamengo get thwarted there. That is so much damage from the explosive cast. Toots taken very low, like you said. No MR here, and it really has been Chiari that, as he has established himself as, okay, I got to be a big damage dealer now. I'm not going to go tank Gragas, as viable as that is. It's Night Harvester into CDR, Void Staff, and Oblivion Orb. Oh my gosh. Oh, Ranger might be in a little bit of trouble here. Walks right through the smoke screen, but Toots is going to buy him some time with the scat of the week. That will be all she wrote. Dancing here, Rudude. It's going to explode at some point.
Look at Parang. They're getting all this damage down, but this flank angle could be huge here for Parang. Frost Strike in danger.
Frost Strike is in a lot of trouble
Look
here.
the dragon.
Yep, gets the link up there from Cleon, but it's not enough. Toots TPing in. He's got the Banshee's Veil as well. He's going to help secure the dragon for his team. Let's see if Flamengo can keep this going. Toots trying to rejoin the important part of the fight and get onto Cleon here. Redbird able to pick up the kill there onto Trigo. Cleon will survive. Well, maybe. Actually, he might not here. Parang onto the chase, but that was a very good fight for Flamengo. It was all over the place, but it does end up working out. Cleon into the human form, if you will, and Parang will pick up that kill.
Yeah, it's not going to be too much trouble for Parang to pick this one up. Ticks over to level 16 with it as well. And Flamenco going to pick themselves up the Baron as well. And this might just be the beginning of the end right here. It looked so good for so long for Renska around that fight. They were getting all the poke damage that they needed to. All of the chip damage onto the exact right members. But just in the final ninth, they aren't able to make it work. Flamenco find the pick onto Frost Strike at the pivotal moment. They get themselves the Dragon. They get themselves the Baron. And now Flamenco in firm control. A 5,000 gold lead nearly here with that Baron pickup. And also just 3 items now on the Syndra. You talked about that lack of magic resist coming on through. Immediately recognizing it, Tuts goes, hey, how'd you like a Banshee's Veil?
Mm-hmm. And be able to keep himself safe, get out of the way of whether it's an explosive cast, even a smoke screen, potentially a shockwave, just a lot of big abilities that have that kind of pick potential. He is able to survive at least a little bit longer, and Tuts is good enough that given that little bit of wiggle room, again, we talked about just being self-sustaining. My initial guess was stopwatch, but Banshee's Veil fills the same purpose.
It's going to be pretty much what they needed in this instance. If Tuts was looking to not die once again this game, that is the exact tool that he's going to need for it, because it is these, as we talked about, wide engages, these new angles that Renska are going to have to go for that are catching them off guard. And if Banshee's Veil is there, it's going to mitigate that crucial, important part of CC. They haven't really got any spells that break it too easily either. There's no long range poke. There's nothing particularly coming out that does it. Their best bet is going to be a Luden's proc that might just catch Tuts off guard here. Maybe just firing things like the smokescreen here. But firing off that smokescreen, it's a pretty long cooldown. And you talked about the disengage power that provides you. It will open up an avenue for Flamenco to try and take a fight if they're looking for it, because that smokescreen is pretty valuable trying to deny it. Doesn't look like they're going to go for anything just yet here. They've still got a minute and a half on the Baron power play to try and make something happen. And given the slow-paced nature of this game, I expect it to just be inner turrets as opposed to trying to break open the inhibitors, unless they were to find a fight.
Yeah, if they are able to find a mistake by Renska, mispositioning by Renska to punish. But again, credit to Renska, because for a team that is as inexperienced as they are, they haven't been making that many just, blatant mistakes that we can look at and point back and say, oh, that's where it all went wrong. As far as that, but it's just been Flamengo just taking care of their fundamentals, playing from, I was going to say playing from behind, but that's not actually true. It just feels like playing from behind by Flamengo standards. But they're taking care of their fundamentals, dotting their I's, crossing their T's very well as well. And it looks like, to your point, Rude, they're just going to try to bleed them dry.
And I think that this is where we're seeing Renska's lack of experience, right? That for all we know, and for all that Renska know, Flamenco could have made a lot of mistakes that better teams may have capitalized on. But Big Cask actually finds Absolute, but he has the flash to get away. That's crucial there to use that cooldown. Now flashless ADC, trying to step up to hit these turrets is going to be a lot more difficult, but those cannon minions are going to be able to do the job. The last single auto coming on through. They're going to break the base here. That's pretty huge in the last push of the Baron to give yourself an open opportunity on that inhibitor. Parang in a side lane is going to be a daunting foe right here. He's got so much healing in his kit. And yes, the Gragas has got a Morellonomicon to try and deal with it, but it's not quite going to be substantial enough, because you take the Morellos, what you are doing is sacrificing damage as your third item. It's definitely going to be difficult to see how the Gragas deals with Parang in this stage of the game.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, Parang, the TP is going to come up here shortly. Toots got the Banshee's Veil back up. I think the cask also popped that. But again, right, we talked about how it was tough to see a way that anyone from the composition of Renska could get to Toots or Absolute in the backline. But the cask, you see the importance of it. And Toots, I think, saw the importance of it and said, nope, Banshee's Veil. I'm not going to get caught out by this.
And now we've just got a severe mismatch. Oh my, that was just one Gragas cask that took Absolute down to that HP.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the importance in the discrepancy between AD carries right now. That Absolute, as we've mentioned, has got that lifeline rune and will be able to sustain off of the mid lane wave, off of the Raptor camp or off of the Wolf camp right there. But Trigo doesn't have Infinity Edge finished. Aphelios does. The difference between these two ADCs is going to be massive in the team fight, and also to that point, the difference in mid lane items is absolutely huge as well. But here comes the fight. Kiari looks for it and just whiffs entirely.
Ooh. Yep, he missed everything and he gets caught out and punished for it. Here comes the dive. Cleon trying to buy his team a little bit of time here. Moonlight Vigil comes. Much damage. Absolute popping off. That's what they wanted to see out of the 3-item of Felios. Frost Strike running for the hills. That might be the death blow here. This is where you talk about maybe the beginning of the end. This might be the end.
And I definitely expect to come through here. Parang will be able to surely mop up Frost Strike here, who's giving him a pretty good run around his own base right now. But you can see straight down into the bot lane, that open inhibitor, going to net them free access to the Nexus turrets and the Nexus as well.
But all things considered, a good first 20 minutes there from Renska. And yeah, just denying Flamengo any sort of initial hold on this game.